Okay, so now we're
I
all
ate
recorded.
dinner while we're working here, so
All right, well, we are recorded for history, and I appreciate y'all being there. So anyway, we're talking about the LEAP Manifesto, and so I'm just gonna try to read this really briefly. Again, you've got a link on it if you want to follow up on it, but these are some principles that I think are very much in alignment with what the Green Party is about, and we need to build some allies for several reasons. And I think this organization based out of Canada could be a very good ally for us as we move forward with trying to build a better world. So anyway, they have 12 demands. No, sorry, they have 15 demands here, and so the first one is we must begin. Okay, this is why I wanted to talk about this tonight. The number one demand: we must begin by respecting the inherent rights and title of the original caretakers of this land, starting by fully implementing the United Nations. Well, this is the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People. Basically, Indigenous populations and their priorities first and foremost. Because second, the latest research shows that 100% of our electricity we could get from renewable energies within 2 decades by 2050. I think we could do 2030, especially in Alaska, especially with Alaska leading the way. We could have 100% clean economy. We demand that this shift begins now. Number three, no new infrastructure projects that lock us into an increased extraction decades into the future. The new iron law of energy development must be: if you wouldn't want it in your backyard, then it doesn't belong in anyone's backyard. The time for energy democracy has come. Whenever possible, communities should collectively control clean energy systems. Indigenous people and others on the front line of polluting industries and activities should be the first to receive the public support for their own clean energy projects. Number five, we want a universal program to build and retrofit energy efficient buildings, ensuring that lowest income communities will benefit first. I found a workaround on that, at least here in America, um, through the foundation and some of the work that ARC's doing, but we'll get back to that later. Um, Number six, we want high-speed rail powered by renewable energy, affordable public transit to unite every community in the country, in place for more cars, pipelines, and exploding trains that endanger and divide us. Number seven, we want training and resources for workers in carbon-intensive jobs, ensuring that they are fully able to participate in the clean energy economy. We want to invest in our decaying infrastructure, public infrastructure, so that it can withstand increasingly frequent extreme weather events. Number nine, we must develop a more localized and ecologically based agricultural system to reduce reliance on fossil fuels, absorb shocks in the global supply, and produce healthier and more affordable food for everyone. ARC is actually working on that. We've joined with the Alaska Food Sovereignty Council. We set a goal of 80% local production in 10 years, and we're actively working at organizing to achieve that goal. Number 10, we call for an end to all trade deals that interfere with our attempt to rebuild local economies, regulate corporations, and stop damaging extractive projects. Number 11, we demand immigration status to full protection of workers. Canadians can begin to rebalance the scales of climate justice by welcoming refugees and migrants seeking a better life. We must expand, number 12, we must expand those sectors that are already low carbon: caregiving, teaching, social work, and the arts are public interest media. A national caregiver program is long past due. Number 13, since so much of the labor for caretaking, whether of the people or the planet, is currently unpaid and often performed by women, we call on a vigorous debate about the introduction of a universal basic income. Many argue that Alaska already has the precursors of a UBI in our Alaska Permanent Fund. But so this is another reason I think that we should be considering this or something like it, or anyway. Number 14 is we declare the austerity is a fossilized form of thinking that has become a threat to life on Earth. The money we need to pay for this great transformation is available. We just need the right policies to release it and to end fossil fuel subsidies, financial transaction taxes, increase resource royalties, higher income taxes on corporations and the wealthy people, a progressive carbon tax, cut to military spending, and then number 15 is we must work swiftly towards a system in which every vote counts and corporate money is removed from political campaigns. As Orren was just pointing out, Alaska has passed ranked choice voting, and I think there were some things in Prop 2 that talked about their clarifying public funds and for campaigns and stuff. So the reason I want to bring this up is that I'd like to propose a motion that the Green Party of Alaska make a statement, and that we consider taking the pledge ourselves as a political organization, which is not something I believe anybody in the U.S. has done yet. So I want to open the floor for discussion. And Orren, you've been with the Green Party the longest, and I'd like to hear from you first.
Can you guys still hear me fine?
You're fine.
Yes.
So, I mean, I think the manifesto sounds good. I know the main goal of the Green Party is just to fight climate change to the best of our abilities, and try to reach out across the aisle to other groups of people. And so I think that the Elite Manifesto sounds fine. I noticed you were referencing Canada in there. Is it more popular in Canada?
It's where it started at. This whole thing is a Canadian-based website, but it's something that they signed on. There's people all over the world that have signed on to it.
I think we should. I mean, it aligns with our values.
So, Eric, would you like to chime in?
Just that Orren was cutting out for a minute there, but I heard most of it. But yeah, from what I heard, I agree with most of it. I need like a text version to read.
Yeah, I believe I linked, sent everybody a link to the main page.
Okay.
And if you go on you have to search for it as I was doing, but there's a tab that says link that leads you to the Elite Manifesto, and that's what I was just reading. So anyway,
okay. I'll look for that.
So Josh.
I certainly liked everything I heard, and I have no problem with us taking the same stance as they make in the Elite Manifesto.
Okay. Martin.
Thank you. I'm not part of the Green Party, so thanks for including me. I just wanted to say I really do like this document. I'm not as familiar with all of the recommendations, but I do know for a fact that in 2010, President Obama did commit the United States to the United Nations act of adhering the United States to the Indigenous Peoples' Rights initiative that the United Nations signed on, I think in 2007. And
the United Nations Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous People. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. So President Obama adhered us to that, but we never. It never really went any further than that. And you're going to see from as you go forward as the Green Party, you're going to see more and more tribes throughout the country pressuring the federal government to try to reflect its values in the way it treats tribal nations more closely to this document by the United Nations. And it's something that we are a part of as a country already, but it's up to us and the tribes to make this country follow it. So I've become more familiar with it recently. So yeah, thank you.
I hope you're right.
Yeah.
Okay, so I support a lot of these principles. I support a lot of the approaches. I do have a couple of concerns, especially about how this would play out in Alaska with other people. definitely down for the Declaration of Indigenous people, the rights of Indigenous people. There's some people that are really not, they don't trust the UN. It's just a concern. I'm not saying that we can do anything about it or it's a deal breaker, but especially in this state, a lot of people are concerned about the UN, and I am too. And part of what I'm doing with the Butterfly Initiative is to give people who don't like that kind of globalism another global alternative. The other thing that I have a challenge with in here is that maybe I've been spending too much time with the libertarians, but I don't like taxes. And I think there's so much waste in government that literally that the governments, the governments of the world could be prospering if we just managed our waste better. And there's millions of dollars in the landfill we're not even tapping. For example, we spend $800,000 a year in the borough here to do recycling, which is basically shipping it down to Anchorage, and doesn't create very many jobs. Orren knows this a little bit. He works in the recycling industry, but we could be pulling in we could be pulling in clean energy, we could be pulling in millions of dollars of materials that we could then be manufacturing into, building up a tech base in Alaska. We could be the next Silicon Valley with aerospace as an environmental stewardship plan. That's why I keep talking about terraforming spaceship Earth as an economic investment tool, but I digress into other topics. But so I'm a little concerned about the language from taxes and the reference to the United Nations. Other than that, I like this. I've always liked this, and I believe that making a public declaration that the Green Party of Alaska does support this and is fully behind this will help us build our international support for our efforts going forward, as well as to keep us fresh in the public's mind in Alaska. And I think that will be helpful to, and maybe even set an example for the Federation. So
Indeed.
Now the challenge is that our bylaws basically say that if you've shown up for a meeting twice, you have voting rights. But neither Eric or Orren have shown up. Martin's not a green. So that only leaves Josh and I. Unfortunately, Lennon was working tonight. So we don't actually have quorum to make a motion. But this is where the Green Party of Alaska has been kind of struggling, is figuring out how we act in a democratic way when we're struggling to meet our own rules. So I would like to hear Orren's thoughts on that.
Can I go first?
Please.
So I think that for the bylaws, I mean, it's always kind of felt like to me our bylaws were, in a sense, almost hampering us. I get why we have them, but our organization's small and we're growing. I think we need to take a serious look at the bylaws and possibly rewrite the whole thing at some point in time in the future. But and so I think in the short term, especially with everything that's happened, we need to start rethinking how the Alaska Green Party is going to be running from here on out. And I think that includes the bylaws.
Okay. Well, with that in mind, and because it's politically advantageous for us to do so, I'm going to suggest that we go ahead and we take a vote. The people who showed up deserve to have their voices heard. So on the motion of should the Green Party of Alaska openly support openly support and sign the LEAP manifesto, Eric, would you like to vote? Yes or no?
Yes.
Orren?
Yes.
Josh?
Yes.
Martin, would you like to weigh in?
Yeah, I thank you. I would vote yes.
All right. Well, that's a unanimous vote. That's great. So, are there any other issues that we would like to discuss about the LEAP manifesto? Are there any questions or any discussion about what we want to do with it now? Anybody?
So-
There is one thing
Okay.
go ahead.
You first.
I apologize for asking a stupid question like that or asking it. So, Josh, you want to say first?
You said this. I caught some of that. You said this Leap Manifesto was started by a group in Canada. So who exactly led the charge on to start this thing? And
The woman who's been noted for it is an author called Naomi Klein, and she's a speaker, advocate. She's run in, I think she's run in the Green Party before. Anyway, this was started by a coalition of scientists and advocates and politicians in Canada. And then it got picked up by other groups around the world, and now it's turned into a full movement. And I think it's, I think this is one of the movements we should consider, we should consider joining. Actually, we already did consider it, so. But does that answer your question, Josh? Like I said, I sent you the links if you guys want to do more in-depth research on this.
yeah, I'm looking over the site right now.
Okay, so Orren.
Wanted to say that when we adopt the Green Party's focused on treating climate change like a World War II level threat, or that's how I've always kind of viewed the party. And so when we approach a situation like the Leap Manifesto, even if we don't all necessarily agree with every part of it, we have to try to support any and all endeavors to fight, climate change. And so that, if it ends up being a group that's trying to fight it, a far right group is trying to fight it, whoever's trying to fight it, we need to back them. But when it comes to fighting for our planet, we should back anybody who's willing to help us fight.
Anybody who's sincere. We'll get to that in a minute. But Martin.
Anybody sincerely wants to help.
Yeah, I think it's great that we decided to sign on to this. It sends a message whenever you do such things. Just as the United Nations, just as the United States signed on to the treaty for the Paris Climate Agreement, it says something whenever you sign on to these documents and attach your name to it. So I think it's really important. I think if we really, if the Green Party really believes in this document, you should publicize it, that the Green Party is behind this document, and say it loud and proud. And also, I would try to get the Green Party in touch with the folks who actually produced this document and have a meeting with one of them. I think it would be really interesting to hear their point of view and why they felt it was so important to put something like this together. Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah. So I'm working on that. I've also actually, one of the people I invited to the meeting tonight was one of my Facebook friends, Terry Troll, and she wrote an article in 2017 asking if Alaska was ready for the leap. She's a reporter in Juneau. So I didn't hear back from her, but I definitely would like to see this moving forward, and we can have discussions, and actually Zoom works really good for Alaskans because we can be all over the state and in the same room at the same time. Just working out the kinks on some of the connections. So Eric, would you like to add anything to the conversation?
Other than what I've heard's good. I actually want to read the document when we get offline here. My internet's been cutting in and out, so I've heard like 99% of what we heard or been discussed. Yeah. So
Well, that's part of doing a recording, so we can have a record of this. And I know Josh has been doing really well with putting together the minutes and writing up posts and sharing them and stuff. And so
that's
we're
excellent.
getting organized.
Yeah, exactly. That's the important part. Yeah. It's been a long haul, but we'll get there.
So on this topic of the LEAP manifesto, I can write a document that we can all, electronic signatures are, I'm not sure if if we need to go through the process of having electronic signatures, or if I can just write it up. The Green Party of Alaska does have a letterhead, and that letterhead has on the bottom, it lists the current officers. So,
Okay.
so Orren, do you have a preference or a thought on this? You're kind of my historian here, so.
On the letterhead.
On whether we should, in writing up a public statement, whether we could
Digital
just write it-
signature.
yeah, put
maybe.
it on. Well, hold on, that we can put it on letterhead, or if it's needed to get everybody's actual signature on it.
I would say letterhead's good enough. You know, that's fine enough.
Okay.
Signatures aren't
Alright.
necessary. It'd be good for signatures, but it's not the single most important thing ever.
Required. Okay.
So, don't start. Oh, my dog wants to have a voice, but she's not 18 yet. So, anyway, so there are videos and there's a lot of information here. There's a lot we can do with this. One of the last things on this topic that I would like to suggest is that everybody talks about policy at the national level. And yeah, there's important policies that need to be written at the national level. But part of the grassroots democracy is taking that stuff as local as possible. And I think that one of the next steps that we can do here is to advocate with the communities that we're engaged in to see if this is something that the local councils can take up, if they themselves would be interested in actually signing on at the city levels and the borough levels and the village levels. That could be a definite encouraging way for us to reach out and to get new members. And I want to specifically speak to you, Martin, in the fact that, as I've pointed out to you before, you know, I think there's a lot of collaboration that could happen between what you're trying to do and the Green Party. But I do recognize, and I do want to continue supporting the fact that, you know, that there could be tremendous value with having an Indigenous party that's for, by, and of that demographic. So Orren has been around, and I'm sure he would be happy to share any wisdom he has about forming parties and stuff. And if there's anything we can do to collaborate and to help you in that process, we will. I'm not trying to encourage everybody to join the Green Party, just and that, you know, make this all one thing. If you believe in the green values and you want to promote those principles, we're welcome to have you, but we believe we can definitely collaborate with many individuals. So I hope you can understand where we're coming from there.
I appreciate that, Robert. I don't think Orren was on the last meeting, but Orren, I was just saying that I'm looking at, since the ballot measure 2 did pass, I am looking into possibly trying to start a Alaska Native party, you know, or Alaska tribal party, you know, of something of the sort, with that just focuses on Alaskan Indigenous peoples of Alaska and making the most of it, because just like many of you who, whenever it comes to going to the ballot and how it was before, it was a closed primary, you never really felt comfortable at all with choosing one side or the other. And that's how Alaska Natives feel all the time whenever it comes to going to the polls. You know, none of us really feel like we have a dog in this fight. You know, we don't feel like we have somebody that's there representing us, you know. And I feel like we force ourselves into one of these parties, and then we try to change one of these organizations to best represent our values, which is totally an ass backwards way to try to do it, you know. And
Lesser
why
of
do
the
we do it
evils.
like that, you know? Yeah, exactly. So why do it like that? We don't have to anymore. The primary's open now, you know. And so why not? You know, that's what I'm saying. Why not? And I came to Robert. I found him online when I was looking through his state documents, and I found his name in the Green Party, and I wanted to learn how these parties came to organize, and I reached out to Robert, and he invited me to last week's meeting. So um, that's why I'm here. I'm just kind of watching you guys as a third party and trying to learn from you guys how you're organized, how you guys best work, and so I appreciate it. You know, I'm not part of the Green Party, so thanks for having me here.
So
You're
on
welcome.
the topic, Orren, would you like to add anything?
Oh yeah, I think that that's a an excellent idea. I think often it's hard for people who aren't in Native communities to know what's happening in Native communities, especially Alaska Native communities, where a lot of the a lot of the villages are cut off from road, and the way to get there is by air. And so it's really hard to know what is how a Green Party member from Fairbanks can help an Alaska Native person who lives in maybe Nome or or just somewhere in a small
Yes.
village somewhere.
How to communicate between the state.
Yeah, and so I think that starting a separate group, a separate party that is focused on just specifically Native issues is an excellent idea, because otherwise it's hard
Yeah,
for other people to know.
I
Well,
agreed.
I think the answer. I think
Okay,
what they
hold
call
on.
that in a party is a native caucus or indigenous caucus or something.
Some
Yeah.
kind of native group of voice, if you will.
Yeah,
But,
they need
yeah.
they need their voice.
I appreciate everyone's enthusiasm, and I will do my best to make sure to do a round robin so everybody gets a chance to speak and be heard. So we're not speaking over everybody. So you want to go ahead and finish up what you were saying, Josh?
So I mean, there's plenty of parties. I think working with there should be just two parties, but I think we shouldn't be making a million different parties. Our ultimate goal as a political party is to get power. Let's be honest here, and what we want to do with that power is make good policies so that we can promote permaculture and whatnot. And if you're on board with that, and if you feel that you're we have to be good stewards of the land, then I think the Green Party is a good place for you. And if we want to promote, uh, help Alaska Natives have a voice in the party and Alaska policy, perhaps the thing to do instead of making our own another third party is to perhaps create a Alaska Native caucus in the Green Party of Alaska. And
So Eric,
Like a
would you like?
subgroup.
Was there any? Yeah, Eric.
Subchapter. Or,
Okay.
Sorry.
No, I was actually asking if you wanted to chime in.
Oh, I was gonna say, like, isn't there some way that we can do like subchapters? Like, because each region should be represented as a whole. It's not just because I live in Anchorage doesn't mean that everybody else should live like Anchorage in a slab of asphalt.
Sure. Well, there's lots of ways to handle the administration, but I think the key discussion point is whether to have the indigenous issues addressed as caucus within the Green Party, or what Martin is talking about, is setting up a whole new party specifically for and by indigenous people.
Right.
I think
It's how to be heard.
well,
It's
what I was
how-
thinking is I've talked to Martin about this before, and while I expressed some concerns about the level of just logistics and paperwork and time of filing and everything with the party, as I got thinking about it more, and then I like to watch the Native Network, FNX, and as I've been thinking about this and going through the LEAP manifesto and stuff like that, I can understand the value in indigenous autonomy, indigenous sovereignty, and nothing can deliver that like their own political party. Go ahead, Martin.
I just wanted to speak to Josh's point of possibly trying to start up a caucus, and I just thought about it right now. Like, there is basically an Alaskan Native caucus, but they don't call it that. If you listen to any of the politics on Capitol Hill, you'll never hear them say Alaska Native this, Alaska Native that. What you will hear is rural Alaska. That's what they say. And
Yes.
yeah, they won't say Alaska Native. That's kind of like it's almost like a taboo word to them. And it's sad that it is, but that's like the political side of way of saying it. And there is a rural Alaskan caucus. And it's used to be a lot stronger. It's not as strong as it used to be, and all the people that are in rural Alaska don't sign on to the rural Alaska caucus. You have some real conservatives from rural Alaska too, and that's for their best interest too, and that's fine. But So that kind of exists, or what I would say doesn't exist is a party, you know, and who knows how effective it will actually be, and what things you could actually do with it, and nobody really knows until you actually do it, you know. If you do it and it fails, then it fails, you know. Um,
That's
so
how you
my
learn.
Yeah, exactly. That's how you learn. And so my thought on it is what's the harm in trying, you know? And if nothing else, it you know, it makes Alaska Native interests louder, you know. Um, so
Well, as I've mentioned to you, Martin, you're welcome to join us as an observer. And you're welcome to hit me up and try to, provide whatever insights I can. If you need more in-depth help, we've talked about how that can work too. So, but anyway, we appreciate your perspective on this because, up till now, it's been really challenging to get people to show up because Alaska hasn't actually been a very tolerant space for green people. And we've been labeled spoilers, and that's just the nice stuff. So this could be a whole new decade for the Green Party, and I appreciate each and every one of you, participating. So one other issue that I would like to bring in the few minutes that we have left, actually, I want to check real quick. Are there any current real major issues that any of you guys want to speak about? I'll start with Eric.
Just engagement. And with the pandemic thing, it's hard to engage, and a lot of people have gone to the internet to go online because they don't want to go anywhere. They're stuck in their box, and the only outlet is the internet or the phone, if you will. And a lot of the rural and native communities don't even have that. And I've been in places where there is no phone or internet. So like I get that. It's remote. You can't talk to anybody. You don't have any access to anybody. You can't talk to anyone. And if you're stuck, you're screwed. I mean, that's part of what is being living in Alaska. You have to have that support team and people that you can call and check in on you, and that's part of a family. And I consider Alaskans a family.
Or at least
That's
sending
it.
you a quarter. Yeah, or at least sending you a quarter so you can call somebody who cares.
Right. Check in. Exactly. Right. Yeah. Toss me a quarter so I can call somebody who cares.
So, okay.
Yeah.
So, Josh, are there any issues that you'd like to see the Green Party addressing in 2021?
Not other than what they're talking about. I mean, I think the National Party, they go far into socialist stuff. You know, I think some of the stuff is good, like calling for the getting rid of dirty money in politics. But other than what we talked about tonight, I can't really think of something new at this moment.
Okay. Orren, do you have a short list of things you'd like to see the Green Party of Alaska working on in 2021?
I mean, we have a lot that we work on because we just got, with ranked choice voting. There's, I guess a big thing would be thinking about more with ranked choice voting being passed, how we can work with other parties and with other groups to accomplish our goals. That's now possible, and it wasn't in the past.
Great.
Huge step.
So the last issue I'd like to bring up is one of engagement. As you all know, we've had some contention with the National Party over our presidential election process. I'll just leave that at that. The issue is that it has exposed a larger issue, and not just with the Green Party, but with the environmental movements and all environmentally oriented green policies. Now, so in September 15th, all major environmental groups, they wrote this open letter to the DC-based Beast. And in this one-page letter that basically claimed that 170 environmental organizations from around the world got together and decided that it was the Green Party's fault that there hasn't been any progressive policies or environmental action in 20 years. These are the same. these are the same groups that have been getting paid for lectures and books and seminars for the last 60 years. So anyway, they basically sent this letter out, and after blaming the Green Party for not doing anything, for being a complete failure, they were explicit in telling people that don't vote for the Green Party. So this has really brought to light something that I've been dealing with here locally with some of the organizations who claim themselves to be environmentalists, but it seems like after a decade of claiming that we need to take action and no action being taken, that the reason for that is that there's just too much money to be made in the talking points. And so there's just so much going on. And so one of the members approached me with an idea, considering the level of chaos at the national level, of calling for a constitutional convention. Article 5 of the US Constitution allows for states to call for a constitutional convention, and it's like a check-in with your therapist. It's a check-in at the mechanics or a doctor, and it's just basically it can be specific on one, but it seems like now is a good time with everything going on to kind of hit a reset button. And so I've been doing some research and toying around with the idea of that maybe our next step, and I'd like to propose this as a motion since we're making so much progress tonight, is to basically put forth a motion of the Alaska Green Party calling for a constitutional convention of the global Greens. We have the ability with Zoom to have up to 100 people on the call, and I believe that we could do a lot in 4 hours sometime in the early January. So I'd like to, that's the motion. I'd like to go ahead and open it up for discussion, and let's start with Josh this time.
So you're talking about the United States Constitution?
Well, I'm talking about the United States Constitution is the framework, but I'm basically referring to calling a constitutional convention just to talk about the state of the party in a global.
Oh, okay.
And to talk about what are our priorities, what does it mean to be green in 2021, because the planet belongs to us all. It's not like our issues end at the US border and the Canadian issues begin. So,
Yeah, certainly.
and with our technology and with everybody being home, it seems like it could be a fairly easy thing to organize a Zoom meeting that's made up of representatives from not only the Green parties in the United States, but the independent Green parties, maybe even invite some representatives from Sunrise and Extinction, but also make sure that we invite representatives from international parties, the International Greens, because I think now in 2021, we have a chance here in the US to rejoin the Paris Climate Accords and actually make some real progress towards leadership. And Alaska being such a small community, but having such a great large landmass, I believe we are in a position better than most to be an example of how the United States can emerge over the next decade as leaders of the fossil-free world.
Certainly,
So,
and sorry, finish.
So these are the reasons that I would suggest calling for a conventional Congress. I didn't mean to get on the soapbox, but anyway, go ahead, Josh.
I certainly agree with that, and something has to be done where in a constitution. So the idea of a constitutional convention is the people get to decide what is going to happen with a constitution going forward, and it's something that certainly has to be done, because especially with the Green Party of the United States, because I haven't looked through all the local elections and all the state elections. I imagine we didn't get anyone into a state, or we might have got one person or something into a state office. But the party in an election where more people voted than ever, maybe not by percentage, but certainly by the number of people voted, we're back. It was a great step backwards for us back getting how we did in 2012 instead of Hawkins. He wasn't able to do as well as Jill in 2016, and it seems like it seems like we lost a few of some of the state seats and the state congresses we had. So certainly like something has to be changed with the way with what the party is doing, and I think we're certainly decided to take the lead on that.
All right. So Orren,
Did you call me?
yeah, I was asking if you had any thoughts on this idea of a constitution, calling for a
Yeah, I think it's
constitution.
I think it's a great idea. I mean, I think often one of the big problems with the Green Party is there's no movement. And so I think anytime you can create movement, it's a good idea. So in this case, Constitutional Convention, there's lots of reasons this could be great. You know, having we're talking about all of the Green parties of the world like meeting together, right?
Yeah.
Stir the
Well,
pot and bring people out.
Yeah, exactly. Stir the pot, bring people out, and we can probably get a lot accomplished. What does it mean to be green? How do we best advocate for fossil free planet?
What? Who are
if
we?
we can
Why are
approach
we
that on
here?
a planetary scale.
Okay, so Eric, go ahead.
Oh, just like, yeah, what are we doing here? Why are we here? And how long will this planet last if we destroy it? How do we fix that? And I mean, there's like, I just saw that post earlier about the what is that? That solar panel that doesn't need actual light to energize. I mean, like, the technology is there. We've just got to find it and utilize it.
Yeah, Pond Scum has been using solar energy for millions of years, and they get by just fine.
Yeah, exactly. Nature's done it for millions of years and doing just fine. We're the guys that are behind. Yeah.
Okay. So Martin, would you like to chime in?
Yeah, I just, I think it's a great idea. Every 5 years, the school district, I'm a school board member, has to put forward a 5-year plan for how they're gonna, put forward, follow the mission of the school district. And we have a mission, and that got rearranged a little bit too. But those times, it's who's at the table that influence the most change. And it doesn't matter if they're good or bad, they influence the most change. And at the end, that document is what it is. So it can be like a double-edged sword. If there's more people that are a lot louder than your ideas, their ideas are going to become a part of this document, or this idea of whatever the green party really is. And so I totally get it. One thing I heard you say the last time is that you didn't vote for your guys' nominee because he never wins, and he doesn't, you guys pick somebody else. And that's a big part that you could bring to this convention, or this meeting of, you could propose something at this meeting where it says, you could run 3 times, and if you fail, or if you don't make any significant changes within the party, you have to give it up to somebody else. Like terms of you could run, or something like that, or it could be represented the head person of the party. And that way people feel like they're being heard, and you guys are actually making change, and trying something different, not doing the same thing over and over. So that would be really useful for something like that. And I heard you say that, Robert.
Term limits, basically.
Yeah.
Well,
They
no,
don't have to run for 20 years.
he's basically talking about a review of where we are, where we're at, and I believe that
Well, that
it's
too.
China actually does something very similar every 5 years. They kind of they take a look at what their business plan is and where they're heading, what they are, and who they are. And it could be every 10 years or something, but I think they do something like that. And I definitely agree that there's good reasons for establishing benchmarks. Of there's always operating system updates. Why, to the computer, it's happened every couple of months. Why can't we have it to the our political systems, our economic systems? I think that's how we continue to progress, and we've kind of stalled.
Yeah.
So are there anybody have any other urgent comments that they want to put out before we put this to a vote? Okay, so I vote yes. Martin?
I would vote yes.
Josh?
Yes.
Orren?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
All right. Well, I'll be working on the draft, and now I have plenty of things to do with my time. So
How do we do that? That's one of the big questions. Like, how do we actually
Yeah.
do this?
So
That's all my question too. I
just
was like,
like any
at a national meeting, and you're gonna propose this idea to the national group or somewhere. How does that work?
there would be no point in that. So basically, what I feel is the best approach to go forward with this. I'll talk to a few people with the Green Party National Committee. I'm not sure how receptive they're going to be, but I will make an effort to do so. But largely, Alaska has the autonomy to basically write an open letter to the Greens of the world and invite them to a Zoom. I don't think it has to be anymore. And then once we do that, then we can try to decide at our next meeting what we want to accomplish, what we're trying to, who needs to be, making decisions and some of those details. But the main thing is basically writing a letter, stating out why we feel we need to do this, what the issues are, and inviting Greens of the world. Since, this isn't just a national issue, and it's not just a Green Party issue. So I think that we should, we can use the same autonomy that we have as a grassroots, as a decentralized state party to take this action. How do you think that's going to? So I'm curious, Orren, what do you think about the implications of that?
Of having a planetary convention?
Of potentially calling for a global convention without going through and getting approval from the Green Party National Convention and going through and getting approval from the Canadian Green Party Convention and all of those steps. So do you think that's necessary, or do you think at this point, with everything going on, that the simplest and most effective approach would be to simply place the call?
Just place the call. That's what I would do. Just go for it.
Right.
The worst thing that happens is they tell you no, you have to go through something bigger, and then we got our answer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, and considering all of the challenges and contentions that Jesse Ventura faced in considering his run for office in 2020, perhaps he'd like to MC the event. We'll see.
Perhaps.
Anyway, okay, well, gentlemen, I appreciate you guys taking your time tonight. We are now at 7:00, and so I will go ahead and end this for this week. I am trying to set up a regular link so we can all have it week to week if you want to join us. As more people sign on, we do need to make sure that we take the time to be respectful and do this one at a time, so we're not talking over each other. And then this is really good feedback. There's always the chats in the sidebar. The Zoom also offers the opportunity to do breakout rooms. So I'll be exploring how we can use these features in the future to expand our engagement. So thank you. See you guys next week.
thank you,
All right.
Robert.
Thanks, guys. Thank you, Robert. You guys have a good night.
Thank you all.